Katherine Terrell covers the Saints. She does a great job down in New Orleans, surviving a snowstorm today, too, for ESPN. She joins us now to tell us a little bit about what she's hearing from the Saints side of things and what's going on with their staff, and potentially just give us a lowdown on how Dennis Allen might fit with the Bears. But, Kat, thanks for joining us today. I know you got the weather and everything going on down there.
Yeah, it's very funny talking to anyone in Chicago because I know it's -6 up there and it's probably 25 here, and it's just, mass panic because it's been snowing. We don't handle snow well, but it is exciting. So that's a big thing going on this week.
I was watching Jim Cantore on the Weather Channel this morning because my son likes to turn that on. He's nerdy like me with the weather. And Jim freaked out when snowplows started coming down the highway. I think he was in Houston in that moment. And it was I just started laughing out loud.
Biggest waste of money. Why do we even have snowplows?
Well, that's the point. They were waiting for the snowplows, and he freaked out that they actually showed up. It was a big moment in Houston this morning. Well, anyway, we're not here to talk about the weather. Dennis Allen, what would the Bears be getting with him as their defensive coordinator? Obviously, you've covered him for a while now, but a lot of success as coordinator. Then he became the head coach and ultimately was fired in the middle of the season. But as you hear that name linked to Ben Johnson, did that surprise you at all? And how do you think he would fare with another crack at being a DC?
Yeah, I guess I'll give a bit of background about Dennis Allen. Obviously, he spent a large portion of his career with the Saints, left to take a, ultimately failed head coaching stint with the Raiders, and he was rehired as a defensive assistant. At the time, Rob Ryan was their defensive coordinator, and it basically was just assumed that everyone in that building and outside of that building knew that Dennis Allen would end up the defensive coordinator by the end of the year. Which is exactly what happened. And, you got to give him a lot of credit. That was a very, very bad defense that he turned around into a top 5 unit over the next few years. I think there's no question that Dennis Allen is a great defensive coordinator. I think that, everyone would agree. And he even said recently on a podcast with Jay Glazer, he was saying, I have opportunities. I'll have a job soon. And so that's not a surprise. I think the big thing about Allen is, has his defense evolved with the times? The defense in New Orleans has been getting kind of worse and worse over the years. If you watch them, the defensive ends don't contain mobile quarterbacks well. So that's a big thing. But is that Allen? Is that the Saints? Is that aging players? I don't know. But, I think you have to give him credit over the years as to how good he has been in New Orleans.
We got quarterbacks up here who talk to the fans in the stands when Hail Marys are being thrown. We're gonna need some level of you can't do that. Do you think Dennis would be comfortable, getting the culture right in that, or helping get the culture right in the Bears locker room?
As a coordinator, yes. I mean, just because I think part of the reason it didn't work as a head coach was accountability. But obviously, as you all know, that's a very different task, asking people for accountability when you're in charge of everyone versus you're just in charge of your unit. And, I don't really think that was a problem when he was just the coordinator. I think it became a bigger problem when he was the head coach this year. That's kind of the things that come out, after a coach gets fired. But, he'll kind of joke around and say he's not actually that nice and he's not afraid to tell it how it is. And when he was the coordinator, the players were saying, they loved him and they didn't want him to leave to take another head coaching job. And, things have just changed. But I think he should have success in Chicago.
Hey, just real quick, while we're talking to Kat, the Bears did officially announce the Ben Johnson hire, so that it's all signed and sealed. Press conference at 11 a.m. tomorrow. We have plenty of time still left on the show. We'll address some of the statements that have already come out from team officials. But go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess when you look at like the Chiefs and everything they've gone through, everybody just talks about Patrick Mahomes and the offense, but when you see what their defense has been able to do with Steve Spagnuolo, and specifically in situational moments, a defensive coordinator that really understands those clutch situations to dial it up. Like, from a play calling standpoint for Dennis Allen, like, what can Bears fans expect, in those pivotal down in distances?
What's funny you mentioned Spagnuolo because Spagnuolo came from New Orleans where he had the worst year of any defensive coordinator ever, right? I think it was 7,042 yards, NFL record, and he went on to have a lot of success. And not saying DA was a failed defensive coordinator, but you get what I'm saying. Um, I think if you look back to the years where the Saints were most successful recently, kind of the almost later Peyton years, you had Dennis Allen and then Aaron Glenn under him and a couple of other good assistants. I thought the Saints were pretty clutch. I mean, he got when they drafted Marshawn Lattimore. He coached them to being Rookie of the Year. I mean, I think they were very successful at getting off the field when you needed to get off the field. But I mean, again, that's going to come down to what players do you have. And with the Saints, ultimately, I just don't know that they evolved enough as their players age to compensate for some of their struggles the last year or two. But when he had the right players and they were kind of in their prime, I think he was very successful.
Yeah, because that's what Bears fans are looking for. I mean, there was just so many situations this year where it's 3rd and long and we're playing soft coverage and time and again we're giving stuff up. So I think we're just looking for some aggressiveness.
Yeah, you might know that the Bears should hire Adam Hogue to my left to be their special teams coordinator, but
no, they should not.
Maybe they should, but Darren Rizzi's the rumored name. How would you think that would work out in Chicago if the Bears were able? Do you think you'd be interested in doing that and joining this whole new power conglomerate that we're putting together up here?
My guess is that there would be competition from the Broncos with the obvious Peyton connection, and they do have an opening, having fired their special teams coordinator a few days ago. But I think if Chicago or anyone's going to have a lot of competition for him, because it's just like I said with DA. Rizzi is a fantastic coordinator, and his players love him. Alvin Kamara just tweeted a few minutes ago that if it was his pick for head coach, it would rhyme with fizzy. But I think he's still a long shot for the head coaching position in New Orleans. But, you just look at some of the players that Rizzi has developed. JT Gray, undrafted guy, consistently known as one of the best special teams players. Rashid Shaheed, who became an all-pro kick returner after being undrafted. Same with Deontay Hardy. So, the success it's in the statistics. And who's also very successful at Miami to be able to stay within after 3 head coaching changes, and Rizzi stayed the whole time. So if Chicago were to get him, that would be a great hire. I think he's very, very good at what he does.
So there seems to be a little bit of a holding pattern right now, and I think it's actually somewhat related to the weather you guys are having down there, because things kind of went on hold here with the coaching search. So they had to move some interviews back. I mean, is that how realistic is Darren Rizzi to be retained there? And is that kind of what is holding all this up right now? We just got to let the dominoes fall depending on what the Saints do with their head coach?
Obviously, Ben Johnson is the first huge domino. I feel like that's going to start making things happen faster. I don't know if this puts the Saints at a disadvantage or not. I mean, the process is the process, as teams love to say over and over. But, I mean, it's definitely not great that some teams are going to be interviewing coaches like Aaron Glenn today, and the Saints can't do anything until the end of the week because flights are being canceled and no one can drive because we don't drive well in cold weather. But I would think that Rizzi's chances of being head coach in New Orleans has to depend on someone else, whether that be Aaron Glenn going to the Jets or Mike McCarthy being hired elsewhere. McCarthy is also a guy the Saints are interested in. So I don't think he's a front runner, but, I'm not going to rule it out. But I think everyone kind of knew that. Interim coaches always kind of have a long shot chance at getting that coaching job full time.
Yeah.
I think we should just have one moment of just underlining that the Bears beat the Saints to Ben Johnson, Kat, and this just shows that this organization here is humming, and New Orleans is just lost in the woods, the weeds, the Netherlands of the NFL. What do you think?
But it's snowing down here, and so at least it's cold and snowing and not -6 and not snowing. So I don't know. I consider that a win for New Orleans today.
Well, we are rooting for you guys to get Aaron Glenn. I mean, if you can help us, help us by getting Aaron Glenn out of the division as well.
Well, he's going, but sure, New Orleans will be a fine landing.
The question is, does he leave New York today? I think.
Yeah. Oh, I assume he goes somewhere. New York seems to be the leading candidate, but I think Glenn will be the second domino wherever that falls. Hopefully today, because getting this done fast would be great.
Let me make one more point. The guy to my left also walked off the set about a year and a half ago when I told him that I'd rather have Derek Carr than Justin Fields for the rest of the season. Just so know that. I gave respect to a guy who was throwing for 4,000 yards over and over and over again, and even though it's kind of ended poorly in the end. But, literally walked off the set. Want that on the record?
We don't have respect for 4,000-yard passers because we've never had one.
Yeah.
The Saints are walking off the set on Derek Carr now.
I understand what's happening. But,
Okay.
but in the moment, they all walked off, and then that year I was proven right, and we don't talk about that enough.
Our producer, Steven, actually has a question.
Yeah, a lot was made about the relationship between Dennis Allen and Kendre Miller. Is there any concern about how he relates with his players after a situation like that?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I feel like Dennis is probably more likely than other coaches to call out players, and it wasn't just Kendre Miller. There were a few other players that he would call out by name in press conferences, and afterwards you'd just be wondering, what did that guy do to get on DA's list? Miller was definitely one of them. I think he was injured in training camp, and that kind of spiraled. I think that's actually a great question that you ask, because I do feel like towards the end of his head coaching tenure, the players had lost faith in him. Would that be the case as a coordinator? I don't know. I don't think it's always so cut and dry. Like I said, I know that when he was a coordinator, the players liked him, but that came with success. The offense was very good, and they had Drew Brees, and when the offense is good, it puts less pressure on the defense, and it all kind of coincides. Everyone's always happy when things are going well and not so happy when things aren't. So, I think he can still relate to players, though, but obviously, he's kind of earned that back after the failed stint in New Orleans.
Katherine, let's get the snow melted down there. We're all going to be down there in New Orleans in a couple weeks for the Super Bowl and all the festivities. We're looking forward to it, and good luck with the coaching search. We're glad ours is over, but we know the pain you're going through right now.
Hey, I can't wait till everyone's here in New Orleans for the Super Bowl, and we are not talking about coaching searches. Hopefully, I won't be talking about coaching searches in February. So,
Make a prediction, actually. Who do you think the Saints end up with?
Man, if I had to guess, just looking at the way things are falling, I would go with Mike McCarthy. I think everyone feels like the Jets aren't going to let Aaron Glenn out of the building, but that's just a guess. So, I think we'll know more by tomorrow based on what Glenn does.
More importantly, first night we're in New Orleans when we fly in for Super Bowl week, where do we go to eat? What's the place that nobody's talking about?
You're going to Taco Bell. You don't.
Well, besides Taco Bell.
So I went crazy and started booking places left and right just in case. I would highly suggest Giacomo's to anyone that comes to New Orleans. And if you don't want to leave downtown, I would say go to Cochon. But, I am happy to write anyone a list of restaurant recommendations. Like, ask any New Orleanian. It's their favorite thing to do, I think, except outside of complaining about the state of their sports teams.
Yes, please send that list along. We're all ears.
Yeah, we're going to get that. We're excited about the food. Kat, thanks so much. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for having me on.
We all silly like the mayor.